If you've ever browsed through Alaskan videos on YouTube, you're probably convinced that no matter where you go to in Alaska, you're going to see moose and bears and all other kinds of animals all of the time. You can find moose walking through the city of Anchorage, wolves spotted in parts of Fairbanks, bears are sitting on the front steps of a house, a family of lynx walking up a neighborhood driveway on a sunny afternoon. And that should be no surprise for a state that is inhabited with waterfowl, pheasants, oyster catchers, polar bears, black bears, brown bears, Kodiak bears, Arctic fox, red foxes, seals, sea lions, wolverines, martens, minks, wood bison, elk, moose, muskox, caribou, mountain goats, Dall sheep, whales, dolphins, snowshoe hares, porcupines, northern flying squirrels, and hundreds of more types of birds and mammals. But if Mr. T was still running around with the A-team pitying the fools, he would be pitying all of the fools who let videos on YouTube blur the realities of real life. I'm not insinuating that you're not going to see any wildlife when you visit Alaska or move here. But if you visit a city like Anchorage, for example, and you ask an Alaskan where you should go for your best chance to see a moose, they're going to direct you to the Anchorage Zoo. If you think you're going to go to a town or community and you're going to see something before it's time to get on the plane to go home, well, a lot will depend on what time of the year you visit Alaska and how much luck you have while you're here. When I first arrived in September 2023, I spent 7 days driving over 700 miles through a large part of the mainland. I drove through the bigger cities like Fairbanks and Anchorage, smaller towns like Nenana and Whittier, over the Thompson Pass, and through the interior to communities like Nelchina and Anderson, and also stopped at several wildlife viewing points like Potter Marsh, as well as several parks like Chugach State Park. And then the following April, I drove another 300 miles from Valdez to Anchorage. In all of that driving, and after stopping at over 50 locations, towns, and communities, the only wildlife I saw were smaller birds. Granted, from the months of October until April, I stayed in the center of Valdez, a town that is seldom visited by the wildlife living on its doorstep. In my first 8 months of driving and living in Alaska, the first wildlife outside of birds that I saw was an Alaskan marten, which was a fuzzy blur darting around the motel lobby where I was living. 4 months later, I saw a coyote torpedo down the street, sprinting faster than Usain Bolt, slightly less blurry than that marten was. Of course, if I had driven 5 minutes outside of the center of Valdez during the winter, I would have had a good chance of seeing a moose or two, and possibly a bear shortly before hibernation began. But I wanted to see my first moose or bear when I would least expect it, and not while I was out searching for it. That wouldn't be as satisfying. I eventually saw several bald eagles shortly before leaving Valdez, and I feel like that was the first moment I had a taste for what I would be seeing in the near future. My first 8 weeks in Anchorage, mostly driving through the city or driving through neighborhoods in the city when I was lost, and also visiting a few parks, I still saw nothing more than birds. I was never anticipating seeing something. I was never disappointed that I had not seen anything yet. It kind of just slipped my mind unless someone would ask me, "Have you seen a moose yet?" But 10 weeks after I arrived in Anchorage, I visited Kincaid Park for the second time. I drove back as far as I could go, all alone sitting in the sun, enjoying the drink that has won more Drink of the Year awards than any other beverage, a Yoo-hoo. When the last drip of that fresh chocolate liquid slithered down my throat, I closed the empty bottle, a little sad that I had no more yoo-hoo, and got in my truck to drive back home. Only 2 minutes from exiting the park, on the left shoulder of the road was a female moose standing there. It took me about 5 seconds to realize what I was seeing. That's how long it took me to see a moose in Alaska. I almost forgot they were there. And in a matter of seconds, the moose turned around and ran into the woods so quickly that I didn't even have a chance to take a picture of it. And that is the moment I realized that in Alaska, wildlife will let you see it when it wants to be seen.